Most jobs clock out at 5 p.m., but raising meat and dairy the Amish way is a sunrise to sunset commitment. No electricity means every task needs pure muscle power. And it's not just farming for them, it's a family's way of life. Raising livestock without electricity might sound impossible to most of us who panic when our phones die, but Amish farmers have turned it into an art form. While we're fumbling for our coffee makers at dawn, they're already out in their boots, ready to tackle the day the old-fashioned way. At 4:30 a.m., when most people are deep in dreamland, Amish farms spring to life. Every task is hands-on, from feeding animals to cleaning barns. It's like a well-choreographed dance, except your dance partner might be a 1,500-pound cow who occasionally steps on your toes. The whole family jumps in, from toddlers to grandparents. Sure, having a 3-year-old help with chores usually means creating extra work, but that's how the next generation learns. By age 8, these kids know more about real farming than most adults with agriculture degrees. What makes this lifestyle special is the deep connection between farmers and their animals. Each cow has a name, every chicken has a personality, some are real drama queens, and even the pigs are treated like family members, though they're notably messier at dinner time. There's an old Amish joke, why don't our cows get stressed? Because they're not afraid of power outages. Amish farms typically spend 50% less on operating costs compared to modern farms of similar size. Turns out, not having to pay electric bills or maintain expensive equipment leaves more money in your pocket. Working with nature instead of trying to outsmart it with technology might seem backward to some, but the results speak for themselves. The real magic happens in how they feed these animals without relying on store-bought feed and expensive supplements. Their animals eat like kings, or at least like very well-fed farm animals, using methods that would make modern nutritionists take notes. And trust me, you haven't lived until you've seen chickens doing what they do best, turning simple grains and garden scraps into breakfast gold. Have you ever wondered why Amish-raised chickens and grass-fed beef taste so much better than store-bought? The secret isn't in fancy feed or expensive supplements. It's actually the complete opposite. These animals eat better than most humans I know, and they do it without a single trip to the feed store. Let's start with the cows because they're literally eating money, or rather, saving it. A typical commercial dairy farm spends about $1,800 per cow annually on feed. Meanwhile, Amish cows are out there living their best lives, munching on grass like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. During summer, they're rotating through pastures faster than teenagers switch TikTok videos. The grass isn't just free. It's exactly what their 4 stomachs were designed to digest. In fact, a single cow can convert about 2.5 acres of grass into roughly 400 gallons of milk per year, which makes those expensive feed supplements seem pretty pointless. When winter rolls around, because contrary to what some city folks might think, grass doesn't grow under snow, these cows don't suddenly switch to processed feed. Instead, they feast on hay that was harvested during summer. It's like meal prepping, but on a massive scale. The timing has to be perfect, though. Cut the hay too early, and it's like eating underripe bananas. Too late, and it's about as nutritious as cardboard. Most Amish farmers can tell the perfect harvesting time just by grabbing a handful of grass and giving it a squeeze, a skill that's been passed down through generations. Now let's talk about the chickens, because these little guys are basically the cleanup crew of the farm. They're like those people at parties who hover around the snack table, except everything they eat turns into eggs or meat. They get scratch grains, sure, but that's just the appetizer. The main course is whatever they can find while foraging. Bugs, worms, grass seeds, and even the occasional mouse. An average chicken can scratch through about 50 square feet of pasture daily, which means a flock of 100 chickens can naturally fertilize and debug nearly an acre of land every week. Free-ranging chickens like these can eat up to 50% of their diet in bugs and worms. That's thousands of insects per chicken per year. They're basically providing free pest control while producing breakfast. Talk about multitasking. And yes, this is why farm-fresh eggs have those gorgeous orange yolks that make store-bought eggs look pale and sad in comparison. The difference is so stark that when my city cousin first saw a real farm egg, he asked if the chicken had eaten a crayon. The pigs might have the best deal of all. They're nature's garbage disposal, but in the most delicious way possible. Table scraps into the pig pen. excess milk from dairy processing, the pigs called dibs, windfall apples from the orchard, pork chops with a side of applesauce in the making. They even get to roam in designated woodlots, where they turn over soil and feast on acorns like they're at a five-star restaurant. A single pig can turn over about 100 square feet of soil per day, doing the work of a small tractor while finding their own lunch. An old Amish farmer once told me, "You know what a pig's favorite food is? Whatever you just dropped." And it's true. These animals can turn almost anything edible into bacon. It's like having a recycling system that produces ham. Studies show that woodland-raised pigs require about 60% less supplemental feed than their commercial counterparts, and their meat contains up to 300% more vitamin E and 74% more selenium. The beauty of this feeding system is that it creates a perfect circle. The cows eat grass and produce manure that fertilizes next year's grass. The chickens follow behind the cows, breaking up the manure while hunting for fly larvae, gross but effective. The only product we'll ever promote on our channel is a book by Claude Davis, a veteran prepper, about 126 superfoods and preservation methods from crisis times like the Great Depression and wartime that are impossible to find elsewhere. We decided to promote his book because we are the last generation able to share these techniques and superfoods to our children or grandchildren. It would be a shame to see this information about highly nutritious foods and preservation methods to survive crises disappear. You can also find a book about herbal remedies from Nicole Apelian on their store. If you're watching this on TV, you can look up our channel, Frugal Solutions, on your phone or tablet and find the books by clicking the link in our channel description or any other video description. The pigs clean up fallen fruit that would otherwise rot and attract pests. Nothing goes to waste. It's like the original zero-waste movement. One Amish farm I visited hadn't purchased commercial fertilizer in over 30 years, saving thousands of dollars annually while maintaining soil fertility better than their conventional neighbors. But here's what really gets me. Studies show that meat and dairy from animals raised this way have significantly better nutritional profiles. We're talking about 50% more omega-3s, higher levels of vitamins A and E, and more conjugated linoleic acid. That's a fancy way of saying good fat. All this from animals eating what nature intended, instead of processed feed that looks like something from a science experiment. The Amish have a saying, "The best fertilizer is the farmer's footsteps." In other words, there's no substitute for paying attention to your animals and what they're eating. You can't just order a truckload of feed and call it a day. But this hands-on approach leads to something even more important than cost savings or nutrition. It leads to healthier animals that can breed naturally and thrive without modern intervention. And speaking of breeding, that's where things get really interesting, because creating the next generation of farm animals without modern technology is an art form all its own. Birds and bees talk on an Amish farm isn't just a delicate conversation with the kids, it's serious business that determines the next generation of livestock. While modern farms rely on complicated technologies like artificial insemination and genetic testing, Amish farmers are keeping things old school. And honestly, their results might surprise you. Take cows, for example. Modern dairy farms often have a technician show up with a tank of liquid nitrogen and some, let's say, specially collected materials. Meanwhile, Amish farmers are playing matchmaker the traditional way. They keep detailed mental records of which bulls produce the best offspring, sort of like an ancestral dating app, but with more mooing and less swiping right. One farmer joked that his memory for bull bloodlines is better than his memory for his own wedding anniversary, though he asked me not to mention that to his wife. Amish dairy cows typically stay productive for 12 to 15 years, while the average commercial dairy cow only lasts 4 to 5 years. That's because they're breeding for longevity and hardiness, not just milk production. It's like choosing a reliable car that runs forever versus a sports car that looks flashy but breaks down every other month. The math is pretty simple. When your cow gives milk for 3 times as long, you need fewer replacements and save a fortune on breeding costs. The process isn't always romantic. Sometimes a promising young bull turns out to be more interested in eating grass than pursuing romance. As one Amish farmer told me with a straight face, not every bull is husband material. But when nature takes its course, the results speak for themselves. These naturally bred calves are born stronger, healthier, and better adapted to life without modern conveniences. Studies show they have 60% fewer health problems in their first year compared to artificially inseminated calves. Timing is everything in this natural breeding game. Amish farmers plan births to align with when food is most plentiful. Spring calves arrive just as grass starts growing, piglets show up when garden scraps are abundant, and lambs appear when the pastures are at their peak. It's like planning a party where Mother Nature handles the catering. This natural timing reduces feed costs by up to 40% compared to year-round breeding programs. The community aspect of breeding is fascinating. Amish farmers work together like a rural LinkedIn network, sharing information about bloodlines and which animals produce the best offspring. They keep track of family trees better than most humans do with their own relatives. "You don't want your cow marrying her cousin," one farmer jokes. "We've got enough problems without adding drama to the herd." This communal knowledge base has been building for generations, creating an oral database that would make modern geneticists jealous. Speaking of drama, let's talk about chickens. Modern hatcheries can produce thousands of chicks at once using massive incubators. But Amish farms rely on broody hens, those special ladies who decide it's time to start a family. And boy, are they committed mothers. These hens will sit on their eggs for 21 days straight, only getting up for quick food and water breaks. Talk about dedication. Most people can't even sit through a 2-hour movie without checking their phone. A good broody hen will maintain her eggs at exactly 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, adjusting her position constantly to keep conditions perfect. The success rate is impressive too. While commercial incubators average about 75% hatch rates, a good broody hen can achieve 90% or better. That's because mama hens know exactly how to adjust for temperature and humidity just by instinct. They'll even talk to their eggs, which might sound crazy, but research shows that chicks actually start learning their mother's calls before they hatch. These naturally hatched chicks show better survival rates and stronger immune systems than their incubator-hatched cousins. Pigs present their own unique challenges. An Amish saying goes, "The best pigs come from happy parents." This means giving sows plenty of space to build nests and keeping boars content with good food and mud wallows. Happy pigs make more pigs. It's as simple as that. And when each sow averages 10 to 12 piglets per litter, twice a year, doing things the natural way clearly works. The piglet survival rate on Amish farms often exceeds 90% compared to 82% in industrial operations. Over generations, this careful breeding has produced livestock that's specifically adapted to local conditions and natural feeding methods. When it comes to dairy cows, this natural breeding approach creates animals that are perfect for hand milking, which, trust me, is an art form all its own. These cows aren't just milk producers. They're partners in a twice-daily dance that's been perfected over generations. The gentle swoosh, swoosh of hands rhythmically squeezing udders fills the barn every morning at 4:30 a.m. sharp. For Amish farmers, this sound is as natural as breathing. While modern dairy farms buzz with the whir of electric milking machines, Amish barns maintain a peaceful quiet that's only broken by the occasional moo or the soft singing of a farmer to their cow. Hand milking isn't just about getting milk from a cow, it's an art form passed down through generations. Young Amish children often practice on dummy udders made from old rubber gloves filled with water. My father always said a good milker needs 3 things: patience, rhythm, and strong hands, says John Stoltzfus, an Amish dairy farmer who's been milking cows for over 40 years. The 4th thing he didn't mention was a really good alarm clock. The process starts with cleaning. Each cow's udder is carefully washed with warm water and dried with a clean cloth. This isn't just about cleanliness. The warm water and gentle touch help stimulate milk production and relaxes the cow. A relaxed cow gives more milk, and as any Amish farmer will tell you, a happy cow is a productive cow. The actual milking technique looks simple, but takes years to master. Fingers wrap around the udder in a specific way, thumb and forefinger make a tight seal at the top, while the other fingers squeeze in sequence, pushing the milk down and out. It's like playing a piano, except your piano weighs 1,500 pounds and occasionally swats you with its tail. Most Amish farmers develop a rhythm that's unique to them, and they swear their cows recognize it. While a modern electric milking machine can milk a cow in about 5 minutes, hand milking typically takes 15 to 20 minutes per cow. However, Amish farmers report significantly fewer cases of mastitis, a painful udder infection, in their herds compared to farms using machines. The gentle touch of hand milking, while slower, tends to be kinder to the cow's udders. The milk then goes through a fascinating filtration process. Fresh from the cow, it's strained through several layers of cheesecloth to remove any unwanted materials. Some Amish families still use the traditional method of running milk through sand filters, layers of carefully cleaned and sterilized sand that catch even the tiniest particles. The filtered milk has a sweetness that many say is lost in machine-milked varieties. But it's not all serious business. Ask any Amish teenager about their first milking experience, and you'll likely hear a story about getting squirted in the face or accidentally sitting on the milk bucket. There's even a common joke among Amish farmers. Why did the cow get so good at hand milking? Because she learned it udder by udder. The twice-daily milking schedule shapes entire families' routines. Everyone pitches in. It's common to see 3 generations working side by side in the barn. Young children start by carrying supplies and cleaning equipment, gradually working their way up to actual milking duties. This apprenticeship system ensures that crucial knowledge isn't lost between generations. Each cow has its own personality, and experienced milkers know them all. There's always that one cow who won't let anyone but Grandpa milk her, or the troublemaker who waits until the bucket is almost full before trying to kick it over. These quirks become part of family lore, passed down along with milking techniques. The evening milking session, usually around 4:30 p.m., follows the same careful process. 12 hours between milkings keeps the cows comfortable and maintains a consistent schedule. After the evening milking, the real challenge begins, keeping all that fresh milk cool without electricity. But that's where the ingenuity of spring houses and ice houses comes into play. At first glance, milking by hand might seem like the hardest part of running an Amish dairy farm. But ask any Amish farmer, and they'll tell you the real challenge starts the moment that warm, fresh milk hits the bucket. Without electricity, keeping dairy products fresh requires an entirely different set of skills passed down through generations. You might have heard the old saying, "as cool as a spring house in summer," but for Amish families, that's more than just a catchy phrase. It's their whole refrigeration system. These clever stone buildings are basically nature's fridges, and they work surprisingly well. While the rest of us panic during power outages about our milk going bad, Amish families just keep going about their business, their dairy products, staying fresh in these simple but ingenious buildings. The secret behind a spring house is pretty straightforward. Find a natural spring, build a small stone building over it, and let physics do the heavy lifting. The spring water maintains a steady temperature of around 52 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, which is actually colder than most modern refrigerators. Here's a fun fact. Before electric refrigerators became common in the 1930s, nearly every farm in America had some version of a spring house. Amish families just never saw a reason to switch. Inside a spring house, you'll find shallow channels where the spring water flows freely. Milk and cream containers sit right in these channels, kept cool by the constantly moving water. The stone walls add another layer of insulation, keeping the temperature steady even during the hottest summer days. One Amish farmer likes to joke, "Our refrigerator never breaks down, unless the spring decides to take a vacation." But what about winter storage? That's where ice houses come into play, and they're even more fascinating. During the coldest days of January and February, Amish families gather for ice harvesting, a community event that's part work, part social gathering. Using hand saws and long metal tongs, they cut huge blocks of ice from frozen ponds. Each block typically weighs around 100 pounds, which led to another favorite Amish joke. Want to know why Amish men have strong backs? Because ice blocks don't lift themselves. The science behind ice house storage is actually pretty remarkable. These blocks of ice, when properly stored in layers of sawdust or straw, can last well into the following winter. The sawdust acts as such an effective insulator that it's not uncommon to find ice blocks from the previous year still frozen solid when it's time to harvest new ones. Modern research has shown that this method can maintain temperatures between 35 to 45 degrees Fahrenheit throughout the summer months. Not everything needs to be kept ice cold, though. Root cellars, those underground rooms that stay naturally cool, handle vegetables and preserved foods perfectly well, but dairy products need special attention. That's where fermentation and aging come into play. Fresh milk might go into the spring house, but a lot of it gets transformed into cheese and butter that can handle warmer storage temperatures. The butter-making process itself is a prime example of Amish ingenuity. Cream skimmed from the previous day's milk is churned by hand, often by younger family members who might need to burn off some energy. The resulting butter gets shaped into blocks and stored in the spring house. Any leftover buttermilk doesn't go to waste. It's either used for baking or fed to the pigs. As one Amish grandmother puts it, "In our world, nothing goes to waste except time." Temperature management becomes a family-wide effort. Everyone learns to read the signs of when food might be starting to turn, and there's a whole set of traditional knowledge about which foods can sit where. Eggs, for instance, can handle warmer temperatures better than most people think. Did you know that in Europe, many countries don't even refrigerate their eggs? The Amish approach to egg storage is actually more similar to European methods than to typical American practices. The most impressive part might be how this system scales up for bigger Amish dairy operations. Some families maintain multiple spring houses, each dedicated to different stages of dairy production. The main spring house might handle fresh milk, while another keeps butter and cheese at the perfect aging temperature. It's a complex dance of timing and temperature management, all without a single electron of electricity. As the sun sets and the evening air cools, Amish families check their spring houses one last time before bed. The gentle gurgle of flowing water provides a constant reminder that nature's cooling system is hard at work. Tomorrow morning, as chickens start stirring in their coops, these same families will begin another day of working with nature's rhythms. Speaking of chickens, they've got their own fascinating system for reproduction, and you wouldn't believe how they manage without electric incubators. Mother hens are the original experts at hatching chicks. They've been doing it since long before humans figured out electricity. In fact, they're so good at it that modern incubators were designed to copy exactly what these feathered professionals do naturally. One fascinating statistic shows that experienced broody hens often achieve higher hatch rates than commercial incubators, with success rates reaching up to 90% compared to the average 75 to 85% for artificial incubation. The term broody describes a hen when she gets the urge to sit on eggs and hatch chicks. Not every hen goes broody. It's actually a genetic trait that many modern breeds have lost. Amish farmers carefully preserve the bloodlines of chickens that maintain this natural ability. As one Amish farmer puts it, "A good broody hen is worth her weight in gold, though trying to weigh her while she's sitting on eggs might cost you a few fingers." The process starts when a hen decides it's time to become a mother. She'll stake out a quiet corner of the coop and refuse to leave except for quick food and water breaks. Some breeds are famous for being excellent broody hens. Buff Orpingtons and Silkies top the list. These dedicated mothers will sit on their eggs for exactly 21 days, maintaining a precise temperature of 100.5 degrees Fahrenheit through body heat alone. Talk about body temperature control. Broody hens actually develop a special broody patch on their bellies. The feathers fall out, exposing an area of skin that becomes thicker and more vascularized. This patch acts like a highly sensitive thermometer, letting the hen know exactly how warm the eggs are. When Amish children ask how the hen knows what temperature to keep the eggs, old-timers often answer, "She's got a built-in thermometer that never needs batteries." The eggs need to be turned several times daily to prevent the developing chick from sticking to the shell. Mother hens do this instinctively, using their beaks to carefully roll each egg. They'll even communicate with their unhatched chicks. Research has shown that chicks and mothers start talking to each other through the shell about 24 hours before hatching begins. The chicks make tiny peeping sounds, and the mother responds with soft clucks. Amish farmers help these natural mothers succeed by creating the right environment. They build special nesting boxes in quiet, dark corners of the coop. These boxes are just the right size. Too big and the hen can't cover all the eggs properly. Too small and she'll be uncomfortable. Some clever Amish children have nicknamed these boxes chicken apartments, complete with do not disturb signs made of straw. Protection from predators is crucial during this vulnerable time. Mother hens are fearless defenders of their eggs, but they're also sitting ducks, or sitting hens, rather. One Amish farmer tells of a particularly fierce, broody hen who scared off a curious barn cat. That cat learned real quick that a mother hen's beak is sharper than her attitude, and her attitude was plenty sharp to begin with. When it comes to the actual hatching, mother hens somehow know exactly when to switch from gentle egg turner to hatching coach. As soon as they hear the first pip, the sound of a chick breaking through the shell, they'll adjust their position to give the hatching chick more room while keeping the other eggs at the right temperature. They'll even help tired chicks break free if needed. Though they're smart enough to know when to let the chick struggle, it's nature's way of building strength. The first 24 hours after hatching are critical. The mother hen keeps her chicks warm and teaches them essential skills like finding food and water. She has different clucks for different messages: warnings about danger, announcements about food discoveries, and bedtime calls. Young chicks learn these chicken communications faster than most teenagers learn text abbreviations. In the world of modern chicken farming, artificial incubators might seem more efficient, but there's something special about watching a mother hen with her chicks. These natural hatching methods have worked perfectly for millions of years, and as Amish farmers will tell you, why fix what ain't broken? Speaking of fixing things, when those chicks grow up to become someone's dinner, that's when another set of traditional skills comes into play: the careful art of butchering without modern equipment. Early autumn mornings on Amish farms bring a particular kind of quiet. It's butchering time, a practice as old as farming itself. While modern slaughterhouses process thousands of animals daily, Amish families handle maybe 2 or 3 at a time. Research shows this small-scale approach actually results in better meat quality. When animals experience less stress before slaughter, their muscles don't flood with adrenaline and lactic acid, which can make meat tough and affect its flavor. Studies have found that meat from small-scale operations often has better marbling and tenderness scores than its industrial counterparts. The day starts well before sunrise. Everyone has their role, from the youngest family members helping to set up equipment to the most experienced handling the actual butchering. A good butcher needs 3 things, says an Amish farmer of 40 years: sharp knives, steady hands, and respect for the animal. He pauses, then adds with a slight smile, and maybe a strong stomach for the apprentices. You should have seen my first day. I turned greener than our spring lettuce. The process begins with careful planning. Animals are selected when they reach the right size and age, typically around 6 to 8 months for pigs and 18 to 24 months for cattle. They're given a quiet, peaceful last day with extra food and water. This isn't just about being kind, it's practical too. Calm animals produce better meat, and a well-fed animal is easier to process. The Amish practice of raising and butchering their own meat means they know exactly what their animals ate and how they lived, something that's increasingly rare in today's industrialized food system. Tools are lined up with precision: razor-sharp knives of different sizes, clean buckets, ropes, pulleys, and a variety of hand-powered equipment that would look more at home in a history museum than a modern meat processing facility. One old-timer jokes, "Our equipment might be from the 1800s, but it still works better than my neighbor's TV remote." At least our knives don't need batteries. Each tool has its specific purpose, and many have been passed down through generations, their handles worn smooth by decades of use. The actual butchering is quick and humane. Unlike factory operations where animals might sense stress from others, Amish butchering happens in familiar surroundings. A little-known fact: the human brain processes fear and stress signals from animals in the amygdala, the same part that processes our own fear. This might explain why many people find industrial slaughterhouses disturbing but can accept traditional farm butchering. Recent neurological studies have shown that animals processed in familiar environments with minimal stress produce meat with better pH levels and protein structures. Even children have jobs, though usually far from the actual butchering. They might run messages between work areas or help clean equipment. The division of labor is both practical and educational, ensuring skills are passed down naturally. Nothing goes to waste, and that's not just a saying. Blood is collected for traditional puddings, organs are carefully sorted, and even bones are saved for rich, nutritious broth. The hide is preserved for leather making, and any unusable parts become compost for next year's gardens. As one Amish farmer puts it, "The only thing we waste is the squeal, and that's only because nobody's figured out how to catch it yet." This comprehensive use of the animal isn't just traditional, it's also incredibly sustainable. Studies suggest that small-scale traditional butchering operations have a significantly lower environmental impact than industrial facilities. The butchering area itself is a model of cleanliness. Contrary to what some might expect from a non-electric operation, Amish butchering areas are often cleaner than modern facilities. Without conveyor belts and complex machinery, there are fewer places for bacteria to hide. Hot water is constantly available from wood-fired boilers, and every surface is scrubbed between steps. Traditional cleaning methods like using vinegar and salt have been proven effective against harmful bacteria, sometimes more so than modern chemical cleaners. Cutting meat properly takes years to master. Each animal has its own pattern, like a three-dimensional puzzle. Experienced butchers know exactly where each muscle group lies and how to separate them for the best cuts. Young apprentices often start with simpler tasks, graduating to more complex cuts as they prove their skills. "I still remember my first attempt at cutting pork chops," one young Amish butcher recalls. "They looked more like Pennsylvania than pork chops, but that's how we learn, one crooked cut at a time." By mid-afternoon, the day's work starts wrapping up. Different cuts of meat are laid out ready for preservation, some for smoking, others for salting, and still others for canning. The community aspect of butchering day often means neighbors help neighbors, sharing both the work and the results. It's not uncommon for families to exchange different cuts, ensuring everyone gets a variety. This tradition of meat sharing has deep historical roots and helps maintain strong community bonds. As the sun begins to set and the last pieces are sorted, attention turns to the next crucial step. Those fresh cuts of meat won't last long without proper preservation, and that's where generations of knowledge about smoking, salting, and curing come into play. After all, when you can't simply throw things in the freezer, the rich smell of hickory smoke drifts across Amish farms during preservation season. Inside traditional smokehouses, rows of hams and bacon slowly transform from fresh cuts into preserved treasures that'll feed families through the coming year. Fun fact, smoking meat actually predates written history. Archaeologists have found evidence of smoked meats in caves dating back 90,000 years. Those ancient humans might have discovered it by accident, but Amish families have turned it into an exact science. Modern food scientists have identified over 200 volatile compounds in wood smoke that contribute to both flavor and preservation. "Salt is like our refrigerator in powder form," explains Emma Yoder, while carefully rubbing a precise mixture of salt and spices into a fresh ham. She's been preserving meat this way for over 40 years. Research shows that properly cured meats can last up to 2 years without refrigeration, though, as Emma adds with a laugh, "In our house, nothing tastes good enough to last that long." The salt cure mixture she uses contains exactly 6.25% sodium nitrite, a proportion that generations of preservation experts have found to be optimal for both safety and flavor. The smoking process starts long before any meat enters the smokehouse. First comes the curing, a careful balance of salt, time, and temperature. Each cut of meat needs different amounts of cure. Too little won't preserve it properly. Too much makes it inedible. "My grandfather used to say measuring salt is like courting," one Amish farmer shares. "Not enough and nothing happens. Too much and you've ruined everything." A precise measurement system has evolved over generations. A palmful for small cuts, a double handful for medium pieces, and specific wooden scoops carved to hold exact amounts for larger cuts. Different woods create different flavors. Hickory gives a strong, savory taste that's perfect for bacon and ham. Applewood adds a subtle sweetness to poultry. Oak provides a medium smoky flavor that works well with beef. The temperature inside the smokehouse needs to stay between 85 to 125 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to create smoke, but cool enough to allow the meat to slowly cure. Interestingly, studies have shown that natural smoke contains over 1,000 chemical compounds, many of which act as natural preservatives. Each type of wood contains different proportions of these compounds, which explains why certain woods work better for specific meats. Salting and drying meat requires equal precision. The process starts with a salt cure that pulls moisture out of the meat, moisture that bacteria need to grow. Traditional Amish dry curing methods create an environment where beneficial bacteria can thrive while harmful ones can't survive. One elderly Amish preserver jokes, We're like bouncers at a very exclusive bacterial club. The science behind this is fascinating. The salt concentration creates an environment where good bacteria can produce lactic acid, which further protects the meat from spoilage. Each type of meat demands its own preservation method. Beef might be cut into strips for drying into jerky, with the grain of the meat determining the cutting direction. Pork belly becomes bacon through a combination of curing and smoking that typically takes 7 to 10 days. Hams go through a complex process of curing, smoking, and aging that can take months, sometimes up to a year for prized Virginia-style hams. And don't forget about sausage making, where fresh meat gets ground, seasoned, and stuffed into natural casings before being smoked or dried. Pressure canning offers another way to preserve meat without electricity. Using wood-fired stoves and pressure canners, Amish families can safely preserve meat in glass jars. The process requires careful attention. Each jar must be heated to exactly 240 degrees Fahrenheit for a specific amount of time based on the type of meat and size of the jar. My mother always said pressure canning is like raising teenagers, one Amish woman shares. You need to keep the pressure just right. Too much or too little and things get explosive. Modern research has confirmed that these traditional processing times and temperatures achieve the same safety standards as electric pressure canners. The art of timing plays a crucial role. Certain preservation methods work better in different seasons. Winter's cold temperatures make it perfect for initial meat curing, maintaining a steady 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Spring's mild weather works well for smoking, offering the right humidity levels. Summer heat helps with drying, especially for jerky and certain sausages. A fascinating bit of science. The humidity levels that naturally occur in different seasons actually help create the perfect conditions for various preservation methods. Traditional wisdom gets passed down alongside these techniques. Every family has their own special recipes for cure mixtures and smoking times. These aren't just random combinations. They're tested formulas refined over generations. Scientific studies have actually confirmed what Amish preservers have known for centuries. The combination of salt, smoke, and proper drying creates an environment where harmful bacteria simply can't survive. The community aspect of meat preservation can't be overlooked. Families often share smokehouses and work together during busy preservation times. We call it the smoke signal system. One farmer jokes, "When you see smoke from your neighbor's smokehouse, you know it's time to start your own preservation." This cooperation ensures everyone has access to proper preservation facilities and helps maintain food safety standards across the community. Successful meat preservation requires constant monitoring. Experienced preservers can tell by smell, touch, and appearance whether meat is curing properly. They check their smokehouses daily, adjusting ventilation and smoke levels based on weather conditions and how the meat is progressing. But even with all this careful attention, sometimes things can go wrong. That's where generations of knowledge about preventing spoilage and maintaining healthy livestock comes into play. The Amish approach to animal health might seem old-fashioned to some folks, but there's real wisdom in their methods. While most modern farmers reach for antibiotics at the first sign of trouble, Amish farmers have spent generations perfecting a system that stops problems before they start. You know what they say? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And in this case, it's worth its weight in gold. The foundation of Amish animal healthcare starts with something surprisingly simple: observation. Every morning before the dew has even dried on the grass, Amish farmers walk through their barns and pastures, checking each animal personally. They're looking for small changes, maybe a cow that's not as eager for breakfast as usual, or a chicken that's walking a bit funny. It's like being a detective, except instead of looking for clues to solve crimes, they're catching health issues before they become serious problems. These daily checkups might sound basic, but here's an interesting fact. Studies have shown that farmers who spend more time directly observing their animals catch about 85% of health issues in their early stages, compared to just 40% when relying mainly on scheduled vet visits. The Amish have known this all along. They just didn't need a study to tell them. Their medicine cabinet looks nothing like what you'd expect. Instead of synthetic medications, you'll find jars of garlic, nature's antibiotic, apple cider vinegar, which balances pH levels and fights infections, and various herbs that most people would mistake for weeds. One elderly Amish farmer once joked that his animals are basically eating a salad bar when they're feeling under the weather. But it works. Take garlic, for instance. When added to animal feed during stress periods like weaning or extreme weather, it significantly boosts immune function. The Amish have been doing this for generations, and modern science is just catching up. Recent research shows that garlic compounds can be as effective as some commercial antibiotics for certain common livestock ailments. The Amish approach to housing animals is equally thoughtful. Their barns might look simple, but they're engineering marvels when it comes to natural ventilation. Most Amish barns are built with careful consideration of wind patterns and seasonal sun exposure. They use something called the stack effect. Warm air rises through carefully placed vents in the roof, pulling fresh air in through lower openings. This natural airflow helps prevent respiratory issues, which are one of the biggest problems in modern confined animal operations. Speaking of housing, one farmer said he builds his chicken coops like he builds his kids' rooms. Clean enough to be healthy, dirty enough to be happy. Exposure to certain amounts of natural bacteria helps animals develop stronger immune systems. Modern farms can be too sterile, which ironically makes animals more susceptible to disease when they do encounter germs. The Amish also practice something they call companion planting for their grazing animals. Certain herbs and plants are deliberately left in pastures or planted along fence lines. For example, they'll leave patches of yarrow, which animals naturally seek out when they have upset stomachs. It's like having a pharmacy right in the field. Some plants even act as natural dewormers, much gentler on the animals than chemical alternatives. What's particularly fascinating is their use of seasonal herbs and plants. In spring, they ensure their pastures have plenty of young dandelions and chickweed, both excellent for supporting liver function as animals transition from dry winter feed to fresh grass. Come summer, they maintain patches of comfrey, known for its anti-inflammatory properties, which is particularly helpful for dairy cows' udder health. Fall brings access to rose hips and elderberries, packed with vitamin C to boost immunity before winter sets in. Breeding plays a huge role in disease prevention, too. Unlike modern farms that might breed for maximum production, Amish farmers select animals for hardiness and longevity. They keep detailed mental records of which bloodlines tend to stay healthiest. One farmer put it perfectly. "We're not trying to build race cars here. We want Toyota Corollas, reliable, efficient, and they'll run forever with basic maintenance." When it comes to stress management, the Amish have another advantage. Their farms typically operate on a smaller scale, which means animals aren't crowded together like in factory farms. They also maintain consistent daily routines. Animals know exactly when they'll be fed, milked, or moved to fresh pasture. This predictability reduces stress, and less stress means stronger immune systems. The role of exercise in animal health can't be overlooked either. Unlike confined operations, Amish animals get plenty of natural movement. Chickens scratch and peck, cows graze across pastures, and pigs root around in designated areas. This natural movement keeps their joints healthy, their digestion working properly, and their immune systems strong. One Amish farmer commented that his animals are like gym members who never skip a day, except they don't need expensive equipment or monthly fees. Weather awareness also plays a crucial part in their preventive approach. Amish farmers are essentially amateur meteorologists, always watching weather patterns and making adjustments to protect their animals. They know that sudden temperature changes can stress animals and make them more susceptible to illness. Before a cold snap hits, they'll boost feed rations and ensure extra bedding is available. During heat waves, they adjust feeding times to cooler hours and ensure plenty of shade and fresh water is available. The Amish approach to quarantine is particularly interesting. While they don't have isolation units with negative air pressure like modern farms, they've developed clever ways to separate sick animals naturally. They might use different pastures divided by streams or woodlots, which act as natural barriers to disease spread. New animals are always kept separate for at least 2 weeks, often in a corner of the property where prevailing winds blow away from the main herd. Perhaps one of the most overlooked aspects of their disease prevention strategy is their approach to animal social structures. Modern farms often mix animals from different groups or separate young from their mothers early, but the Amish try to maintain stable social groups. They've noticed that animals who stay with their familiar herd mates are generally healthier and calmer. It's like keeping a kid in the same school throughout the year instead of constantly switching. Less stress means better health. These methods aren't just about preventing illness, they're about maintaining a balanced, sustainable farm system. Just like their careful meat preservation techniques keep food safe without electricity, their approach to animal health keeps livestock thriving without depending on modern medicine. While it may seem simple on the surface, this complex web of natural healthcare practices, from strategic barn design and herbal remedies to careful breeding and stress management, creates remarkably resilient animals. The Amish have proven that sometimes the old ways, developed through generations of careful observation and hands-on experience, can outperform our modern solutions.